Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesko Zimmermann. I am a data technologist in the Department of Agrifood, Business and Spatial Analysis in Teagasc in Ashtown, with a specialization of spatial analysis and remote sensing. And I'm going to do the first step in our journey back in time, which is the long-established woodlands. So, as we've already said, the definition of a long-established woodland is basically a woodland that has been continuously forested since the first edition OS map, around 1830 to 1844. And the great thing about these maps is that they're fully available, freely available, fully scanned and georeferenced. So technically, that shouldn't be a big problem. All we need to do is identify all the woodlands that are on these maps, overlay them what's currently there, and we've got them. But as John already said, it is not quite as easy. The problem is that these maps are scanned and georeferenced, but they're not digitized. So the symbology has not been outlined there. And doing that by hand, as John said, and Thomas will know, is really hard work. It's really resource intensive, time, manpower, and trying to basically do this for the whole country is not feasible. Fortunately, technology has come a long way in recent years, especially through machine learning and new methodologies in deep learning, which can help us to automate this process. So we want to basically get from a map like that to something that actually outlines the woodland so we can use them in spatial analysis and overlay them with modern data, but also possibly with other imagery such as satellite imagery to see how they've been developing in the available record. So the system we are going to use is called image segmentation. It's basically the computer vision technique which can identify features of images and mask them and create a mask that shows you where they are. So we haven't gotten there yet. We've only just started with the project. So rather than me talking about what we will do, I'm going to talk about a project where we've already done that. This was part of the Terrain AI project, which was co-funded by Microsoft and SFI. It was basically a project to look at measurements and monitoring of carbon stocks and emissions in different environments. And one of these environments was wetlands. So as part of the project, we, and by we I mean team consisting of Teagasc and Trinity College Dublin, so myself, Stuart Green and Rob O'Hara in Teagasc, and Richa Mavaha and Matthew Saunders in Trinity, went on and looked, can we digitize the wetland symbology from the historic OS maps? And we basically used the same map that Thomas used, the first edition color OS map, and developed a machine learning model to read this wetland symbology. So here you see, this is the wetland symbology in the maps. And we basically we didn't do it for the whole country. We looked at a specific sample site. This is the Barrow catchment. So we tried to model the whole Barrow catchment. So I'm just walking you through the process now very briefly. But the first thing is we need to select a specific model. So there's loads of different machine learning models out there. And we decided to use a deep learning method called a UNet. It's basically a standard for image segmentation, very, very good at recognizing features on images. It comes mainly from medicine, where they use it on, say, brain scans to identify any sort of aneurysms or tumors or something. But surprisingly, it works really well on maps as well. This is how it looks. I'm not going to go into too much detail. It basically breaks an image down into ever smaller bits and then builds it back up and sees how good it matches. But what is important is that you basically feed this model a set of known imagery which the model uses to train. So it basically goes through this imagery, looks, okay, this is supposed to be a wetland, this is not, and then it goes over and over again until it can do it by itself. So what you have to do is create training data sets. So we took, and that was Rob and Richard, did that work. They took 800 of these squares of wetlands and manually masked out the wetland. So black is non-wetland, white is wetland. That was then fed into the model, which used that to train and train and train again until it could, with a high probability, recognize what a wetland was and what not. So this is kind of the training curve. So you run the model, the loss values, basically the lower the loss value, the better the model runs. So you see you run it a few times, train it a few times, and eventually it goes down, the model gets better, 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 and better. And then you said, okay, from here on nothing happens. This is the finished model, and that's what we're going to apply. I keep it very brief. This is just to show you what we're going to do. The results are quite interesting. So going back to the map that I showed earlier, this is the actual model result. So this wasn't me painting it all green. This was what the model put out. So you can see this works really well. You can really get the outlines. You see here some false positives, but all in all, this is a really strong methodology to recognize these wetlands. Now, having done that, we applied this to the whole area, and this is kind of the spread of the wetlands in the historic map. So in the 1800s, this is where wetland was in the Barrow catchment. Now, you don't just take the model, throw it out, and say, this is it. You need some sort of accuracy measurement. So you need to know how good it actually is. Like with any mapping exercises, be it manual or be it modeled, there's always an error in there. Sorry, that's my accent. You can never get it perfectly, but you need to have some sort of measure that when you use the model that you can tell people how good it actually works. So we need to basically count on a statistically significant sample how many true negatives we have, how many true positives, and then also your false negatives and your false positives. So we took a set of, I think it was about 1,000 points, and digitized the framework, then overlaid it with a map and said if 50% of that polygon is a wetland, then we say that's a wetland. And if that's true, you've got a true positive. If it's not, you've got a false negative, and so on. So we did this and got our accuracy assessment, and it's pretty good. So 97% total accuracy in the model. So for the whole area, we could say with very high confidence what's a wetland in the symbology and whatnot. And this took, sorry, Thomas, I'm going to tell you now, but this took, I think, around half an hour. Now, in fairness, there was months and months of work going into it as well. But once you run it, it runs really quickly. We could do just a bit of overlay as well. So we overlaid it with the recent Ontolcha National Land Cover map to just see what's still there and what is now not wetland anymore. Again, take that with a grain of salt because the mapping is not perfectly accurate. Neither is the National Land Cover map perfectly accurate. So this is indicative. But you really see large areas. In brown is where wetland has been lost. So this in the National Land Cover map is not wetland anymore. While everything that's green is still something that is wetland. So we managed to publish that, fortunately, which is very, very good. So we can refer to that now in the Ancient Woodlands project. Now, the project itself comes with its own challenges. So it's not just a replication of what we've done before. For one thing, we're now dealing with a national map. So it's not just a small area. We're very lucky that we have Thomas's data because that really helps us getting the training data ready rather than us going through there and doing it. He has already done it for us. But difficulties, for example, are that there's there was one wetland type. Here we are dealing with multiple woodland types. So I've got here the different symbologies. So we've got coniferous plantation, mixed woods, brushwood, broadleaf. We're going to digitize orchards as well, just to have them in there. They can be removed and not. But it's a slightly different approach trying to get a multi-class algorithm to run. So rather than just identifying woodland, it will, when all goes well, tell us what type of woodland it is as well. We also would like to improve the performance of the model. So even though the accuracy was very high, the model struggled with large open areas. So this happened a lot. The reason why it looks like that is the model takes basically 512 times 512 pixels. So we had to take each sheet, cut it up into these small sheets, run it through the model, and then stitch it back together. And for some reason, it struggled with areas that were pure wetland. We've tried loads of things. It just always comes up with these weird bits where it just, even though it's complete wetland, it just doesn't find it. Fortunately, it's in these unenclosed areas. So if you put the frame around, you still know this is a wetland area. So it doesn't overall affect the, how you use the data. But it's just something that we hope to improve then in the forestry data as well. But I think that's it. So I'd like to thank the team, and true to everything, you always forget something, and I forgot to put the Woodland Trust symbol in there, because you always, so apologies for that, if anyone is here. And I'd also like to thank the Terrain AI team as well, because they did all the work, and I could present something because we're only at the moment at the stage where we have the training data ready and starting to train the model, so there isn't anything I can present yet on that work, but we're positive that we'll have a running model very, very soon.